What is up, YouTube? Husky bass heads, we all do this because we love that bass. So what we're going to do today is build a box, another one. If you guys saw my last video, you remember I removed the back seat out of my 2018 Mitsubishi Mirage. Then I built an amp rack platform that sit over the top of the lithium bank. And then we built a platform to mount the subwoofer box 2. So this is video 2 of this build series. And what we're going to be doing in this video is building the box. Now, as I said in my previous video, the reason we're doing this is because I had 212s on 6,000 watts and it just didn't sound good. Like, it should have hit so much harder than it actually did. Well, that's because I was trying to cram 10 pounds of crap in a 5-pound bag. Like, I was trying to keep my back seat. And so I ended up building a box that was way too small for these subs, and no matter what kind of tweaks I made to the box, tuning it lower, what have you, it just didn't give me the output that I wanted. So that's what brings me to this, removing the back seat and just redoing the whole thing, building a bigger box and so on and so forth. So I really wanted to do my homework on this one. I really wanted to make sure that I ended up with what I wanted, because this is like the third or fourth box that I've built for this car. Haven't been happy with any of them. Even when we were running that 15, I don't know if you can see it, there's a Pierce Audio 15 under there. Anyway, a couple boxes for that. Wasn't real happy with that. It's all because I was trying to build boxes too small and keep my back seat. So in doing some research, I stumbled across a video on a guy's page. The guy's page is called Chriso's Bass, I believe. I'm going to link that video in my description, so if you guys want to go watch this video, you can. This is where I got the inspiration to build the box that I built. But basically, you do two things. If you really want that like ground pounding, like 25 hertz and below, is you take whatever the sub box recommendations of airspace are, and you build it bigger than that. In his video, he says anywhere from 1.3 to 1.5 times bigger than what the manufacturer recommends. So you do that, and then you take your port and you tune it in the dirt, like mega low. Like, for instance, the port that I'm going to be using is tuned to 20 hertz. And the example that he uses in his video, I believe the box is tuned to 20 hertz as well, if I remember. So, guys, go check out that video. It's a great video. He uses like a Bass Box Pro or Win ISD, I don't remember, to show you like the graph of like airspeed and stuff and frequency response. But we're trying to get this thing to really move some air and hit those low notes. And this is why we're doing that. Or this is where I got the inspiration to do that, is from that guy's video. So go check it out. So the specs of the box I'm building, it's going to be 6 cubic feet before displacement, and it ends up being about 5.5, somewhere in there, after displacement, which is bigger than what the Savard Audio subs, Savard Audio recommends for those subs. They recommend 2 cubic feet per sub, so that would only be 4 cubic feet for the whole box. Well, this is going to be 5.5, right? So we're bigger than what they recommend. We're using a 6-inch aero port, and the aero port is going to be tuned around 20 hertz. So it's going to be long, like a big, long, you know, Super Mario tube sticking out of the back of that thing. And if this doesn't get us hitting those low notes, I don't know what will. But anyway, guys, this video is going to be me taking you through the process of building that box. I hope you like it. I hope you stay tuned and watch it. Remember, we're going for lows, so this thing is going to be huge, like 6 cubic feet. Well, 6 cubic feet before displacement, so about 5.5 cubic feet after displacement, and it is tuned to it's going to be tuned to about 20 hertz. And I'm trying to just use up a lot of this spare material that I have. Right, I got some of this really cheap plywood. I got some 1/2-inch MDF. I got some 3/4 MDF. I'm trying to just use what I have here. So anyway, with that being said, here's my base, right? I got some 1/2-inch MDF that is wood glued and screwed to some 1/2-inch crappy plywood. And I even got it, you know, the screws are too long. They're sticking up. Doesn't matter. That's going to be on the inside of the box. Doesn't matter. Who cares? It's nice and dense sounding. I mean, that's plenty for a base for the bottom of a box. You guys want to talk crap? I don't really care, right? Basically what I did was I put the 2 pieces of material together first, and then I cut it. That way these edges are the same. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I've got some 3/4 MDF, and this is what I'm going to make my sides out of. Okay, so I already got one of the sides here cut. That's 18.5 inches tall, right? Like I said, this is going to be a big box. But what I like to do is run screws in from the bottom. I like to put this where it's going to be and then draw a line. Right? That way I know that's 3/4 of an inch. Then I can drill some little pilot holes. That way I can run screws up from the bottom without splitting the wood. Okay, so I don't know if you can see this, but I got little bitty pilot holes drilled for my screws, and I got them up here too. Now what I did to get that was I just held this where I wanted it, right? And then just ran my drill up from the bottom. Then that showed me some little holes on this side, and then I just kind of finished those holes out. And I even got a marker to help me line it up here and here. That way I don't get it flipped over on accident. So now the next step should be to just lay a bead of glue, put that in place, and then run some screws up from the bottom. All right, so we got this back piece on. I did end up having to use a clamp just to kind of, you know, squeeze this side together. And then I just ran them screws up underneath there in my pilot holes. Now I'm getting ready to put the side on. That way it will hold this whole thing in a square shape, right? Like once you put this on, now the thing has some rigidity. So what you want to do before you start landing screws is make sure that your gaps are filled. What I mean by that is, if you run a screw right up in here and tack this down, well, now you got this great big gap right here, right? And you're not going to close that because this is already screwed down to this. So I'm going to go run my beads of glue and then get another clamp to clamp that together before I start drilling my pilot holes and then dropping screws in there. Okay guys, well, you get the idea, right? Like I'm just running beads of glue, drilling pilot holes, running beads of glue, using clamps to hold everything tight, and then just landing screws, right? Like you don't need to watch me do that. So you just build it all the way around, get all four sides, and then there you go, right? So I'll spare you the agony of watching me do that. But we did run into a little bit of an issue. Remember, I'm not going out to buy any materials because I already had a bunch of spare stuff in my garage, and so that did leave us with a bit of a problem. So check it out. All right, so we have the shape here. Got screws in every side here. Now. I didn't have enough length of wood to bridge that gap there, so I had to cut a little sliver and stick it in there. Now I know y'all gonna hate on me for that, like obviously that's not gonna be very strong. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take another sheet and kind of cover that up to bridge that gap. You guys will see. Right now we're just getting the shape. Looks a little crude right now, but it'll come together once we're done. Okay, so I'm gonna try to clean up some edges here in a way that I've never done it before. You can see you always kind of end up with a couple edges that have this little overhang. Well, I'm gonna see what I can do with my flush trim bit to see if I can knock them down a little bit. We'll see how it goes. So as you guys can see, my bit's not deep enough. Might have to figure something else out. Man, what a pain in the butt. What I ended up having to do, well, as you could see, you know, the bottom of that box was 2 layers thick, and my flush trim bit wasn't long enough. So I probably should have checked my tools before I started doing that. But anyway, what I ended up having to do is use a chamfer bit to knock down the bottom at like a 45-degree angle. And that allowed me to get in just close enough to kind of take off the rest that my flush trim did not get. It was a little crude looking. It wasn't bad. So then what I had to do was use like a block sander with some really rough sandpaper on it to knock the little bit of it off that was still there. It turned out good. But that whole process took me like an hour versus just like running my router right down the side and being done with it. So that was a pain in the butt, but we got it figured out. So now that we know that our flush trim bit will only go through one layer at a time, it's time to mount the baffle, and we're going to use the same tactic where you make it a little bit bigger. That way you can flush trim the side. That way it's smooth with the box. But since it's going to be a 3-layer baffle, we're going to have to do one layer at a time. Do one layer, flush trim it. Then glue and screw the second layer, flush trim it. Glue and screw the third layer, flush trim it. Instead of doing all 3 layers at once, we're going to do one layer at a time. All right, well, the box has a top now. It's just 1 layer thick. And what I did was I basically just set it face down on that piece of ply right there, traced it out and cut it out. Now, I left it a little bit big to where it hangs over on each side. The reason I did that is so that I can run down the outside with my flush trim bit. And now I know that my flush trim bit can only hit 1 layer at a time. So that's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to do this layer, trim it up, attach the next layer, trim it up, attach the next layer, trim it up. That way I don't have to deal with the pain in the butt that I had to deal with the bottom side. So anyway, that's how that is. I'm gonna have to go get some silicone and some more glue and stuff. But you know, it's coming along real well. All right, well, that turned out really good. 1 layer at a time. Where is it? Using my flush trim on my router. Right, I just left each edge a little bit big and then just used my flush trim to cut it off. Now it's perfectly straight, no overhang. All right, well, got a couple more layers to put on that. Right, got them screwed into place, boom, boom, boom. Ran a bead of wood glue on there, obviously, before I did that. Now we're just going to stack it up. Right, at least one of those layers is going to be MDF, maybe 2 of them. I'm not sure, but anyway, I'll bring you guys back once I've got this done. All right, so guys, I broke 2 bits, and I'm pretty sure it's because there's a bunch of nails in that baffle. But you can see I have 2 holes, 2 guide holes, so I'm gonna use my jig to finish those holes finish cutting those holes now that I have a guide. Hopefully I don't break any jigsaw blades. All right, so remember guys, we had this seam right here because we didn't have a piece long enough to bridge that whole gap there. All right, this is in place really well, except we have this seam right there, which is not good for strength. And I told you we had a way we were gonna fix that. Basically what we're gonna do is just put a little outer piece on here, and I'm gonna use some PL. Excuse me, what is this exactly? That's what that is. To fill the gap, right? We got a little bit of a uneven surface here. So we're gonna use some PL glue to fill that gap, and then some wood glue, and then we're gonna screw it down. And that should give us plenty of strength from that aspect, and it just kind of gives it a different look, you know, gives it a little, I don't know, you know, I rounded the edges over and took this and met it with this corner, so, you know, it doesn't look terrible. It'll look all right, especially once I get everything all smoothed out. And then just so it matches, we're gonna do another one on the other side. We're gonna do a little, you know, we're gonna raise one of the subwoofers up. We might even put a little offset panel here on the front, just so it doesn't look like a square box and then you just got this one panel. We're gonna have a couple of them on there just to give it, I don't know, kind of a robotic look, I guess. I don't really know, but that's the way we're gonna fix that. That way there aren't any structural issues or any leaks or anything. So guys, how I decided how high I wanted this is I drew this line here. I put the box in and test fitted it, right? Because I know that port, hang on, let me take this off. I know that port has to clear right here. So I basically just put the box in, put a flat plane right here, and then just drew a line, right? Because if I put the port way at the bottom, it would run into that right there. So anyway, that's how I measured all that out. All right, guys, so I kind of messed up. I measured my hole that I cut for the bell end of this port. Well, the problem is my flange on my port is smaller than the outside of this bell. So I put my flange in there, and then there was a gap. So anyway, all I did was I made a secondary flange here. Right, this, I'm going to glue this to the box, and then that flange will butt up to this flange. I'll show you how it works, but I just cut my hole too big. This hole is not as big, and so it'll work out. Okay guys, well, we're done for today. Got the driveway all cleaned up. All the woodworking on this thing is complete. Let me show you guys what we got. All right, so there it is. Got this 6-inch aero port. It's gonna mount with a flange there. That's a hole for the speaker terminals, like that. All right, we got one of the subs sitting in there. Okay, now I already measured this gap here. It's about 9 inches, and these subs are 8.5 inches deep. So it'll barely clear that port right there, which is, so it's good that I added this spacer here, or else it wouldn't. So anyway, that's what we got. kind of got the segmented sort of, I don't know, robotic look. I don't know how you want to say it. You know, I had to fix this. I had to doctor up this side that had the seam in it. And so I just kind of made a theme with a bunch of squares and blocks and shapes and stuff. So that's what that's going to look like. That's the back of it, right? Car seats are going to be right there. So anyway, it's coming along. Oh, we had to doctor up a split here too. That was, I don't know, that was split right there. Like a little slip. Sorry guys, it's really bad focus. Anyway, it was split right there, so I just put some PL and clamped it. I probably could have just like cut it off. It wasn't really an integrity issue. But you know, I gotta let all that dry before I go much further as far as like painting or anything. And this actually might stick out a little further, I don't know. We'll see what we want to tune this bad boy at. But anyway, excuse me, that's where she's at right now. Back working on the box this morning. The plan today was to get it ready for paint. And I think we're there. We've been doing a little smoothing around these edges. You guys remember my blowout that I had right here? Well, never even tell that it happened now. That's all clamped together, and then I sanded it down. And I had to use my grinder to get rid of a couple of screws that were sticking out. Anyway, and then I just took my hand sander. Where is it? Oh yeah, right there. All right. Just made some of these edges a little softer. Had a piece where the MDF was wanting to split right there, so I smoothed that over. You know, I mean, it's not perfect, but and then I just basically went around the whole box, got the thing ready for paint, scuffed it up a little bit, and then this is a lot smoother than it looks. I mean, it looks rough, but that is like pretty smooth. Same with like here, right? That's just like very smooth. I smoothed some of these edges out where they'll meet a little bit better with these corners. You know, everything I just kind of softened it up a little bit, right? That's smoothed. That's smooth. I roughed this up since it already had some paint on it, right? We want the paint to stick. So just kind of went over it. See, you can see all that's been sanded. Drilled my holes out. I don't know what I'm going to do yet. If I'm going to run threaded inserts or if I'm just going to run bolts through here and reach in and just kind of fasten the bolts that way. The only reason I say that is because you always have, right, running these bolts through here is always, you're always very close to having a blowout when you go with threaded inserts. You know, unless I'm definitely going to do threaded inserts here because I'm nowhere near having a blowout. Let's see, did I have one? I thought I had one around. Is it in my pocket maybe? Yes, here it is. Right, like these are 1/4 threaded inserts and they're pretty fat. Like, yeah, I like using these, but man, you get awfully close to having a blowout on that inner wall right there. So I don't know if I'm going to use them or not. I might use T-nuts. I don't really know how I'm going to do that yet, but I'm going to do something. We'll figure it out. Anyway, I think we're ready for paint. Now let me show you guys what we're going to use for paint. Come in here in the house. This is what we're going to use. This stuff right here. Exo hide. Got it on Amazon. It's basically Duratex. I don't know if you guys have seen that stuff, that speaker coating stuff, but it's expensive. A gallon of it is over $100, I think. Anyway, I just got on Amazon and did a search for Duratex, and this stuff came up. Apparently Amazon doesn't sell actual Duratex. You have to go to their website, I think, to buy it. And that's the speaker coating. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, Parker the BassHead uses it in some of his videos, and some other guys have used it. It's like a textured speaker cabinet coating. It's thick, and you roll it with a textured brush, and it textures it. Well, I typed in Duratex to Amazon, and this came up. So this apparently is the same kind of stuff, but it's much cheaper, like a third of the cost. And that's a gallon, I believe. So we're gonna try that, see how it works. I really like that textured coating. It just looks nice, right? And I still have my old brush. This actually came with my Duratex when I ordered it. That did not come with a brush. So good thing I kept this one. This is what gives it the texture, as you can see. So anyway, that's what we're going to be painting that with. Oh, there's my port. And so I think we're about ready for paint. I can't really think of anything else we need to do. So we'll get to that. So you guys can see how thick this stuff is, right? Like, look at that. I mean, that's super thick. So makes it easy to understand, like when you use this kind of roller, it's going to add texture. So I'm going to do a couple of my floor pieces for in the car and the box. I don't think you guys really need to watch me do this, right? I'm just going to use a paint tray, and I mean, pretty self-explanatory. I'm going to get a first coat on all this stuff, and then I'll bring you guys back. A little intermediate step here. I got the bottom of this box and my two platforms here painted. Man, this stuff goes on really well, and it covers really well. I barely used any of that gallon to get this, and you can already see it's got a nice texture to it. Probably gonna do 2 coats. But you don't have to push very hard on your brush. You just very kind of lightly roll it on there, and you let the brush do all the work. Anyway, now we're gonna flip this thing over. It's dry now, so I can sit it on that side and not worry about the paint coming off. We're gonna flip that over, paint the whole rest of the box, then maybe give these 2 pieces a second coat. All right, well, pretty much done for the day. Just got done cleaning up my work area. We got 2 coats of that well, it's not Duratex, it's XL hide. I keep calling it Duratex, that's not what it is. But I got 2 coats on it now. And man, it looks good. And it's been sitting out in the sun all day today, so it's dry. Man, this is good stuff, man. I really like it. Nice, textured, thick, covers really well. And I only used about half a gallon. But that's what it looks like. I think we're gonna do something a little special with the paint scheme on this. We're gonna put a little bit of something on top of this. I think, we'll see, but I think it's gonna be cool what we're gonna do. Anyway, really pleased with how this is coming out so far. This speaker coating is exceeding my expectations. I mean, it looks really great. as you can see, we got all our turquoise panels on there. Stuff doesn't cover real well. I mean, that's 2 coats, but whatever. We just need a base coat. Got everything else masked off. All right, you guys can see what we're gonna do. We got a couple of different colors here. All right, we got a blue. We got like a really bright purple. Amethyst. And then we got like a black, kind of like a charcoal. And this thing busted open. I don't know what happened to it. The lid cracked or something. Anyway, this is like a pearl charcoal or something. We got a couple of different paint brushes. Where did those go? Oh, right up here. All right, so we're just gonna kind of, I don't know, splat a couple of designs on there and just see what we come up with. I don't really know what it's gonna look like. We're just gonna throw some paint on there and see what we get. Back out first thing in the morning. You can see it's still completely dark outside. Just couldn't sleep, you know. So here we are working on this thing. But you can see after I painted it in the yard yesterday, I brought it back in here to the garage to dry. Oh, excuse me. Oh. So it wasn't out in the elements. And man, it looks great. I'm really happy with it. You can see adding this clear coat was definitely the move. Duplicolor clear effects, multicolor metallic effect. So this is supposed to leave kind of like a metallic sheen to it.
I don't know if you can see it, but it definitely has like a, you know, it's what do you call it? Like glossy now. And again, I don't know if you can see it, but I can. But it's got like metal flake in it now. I don't know if it actually is metal flake, but it looks like it has like a flake in it. And you can really see it in these lighter purples. Man, that looks good. I'm really, really, really happy about that. That looks so good. Pull this out. Yeah, and I'm glad I did the clear coat again, because this turquoise color was just so flat. It almost looked like there was chalk on there. And even though I really liked the color, I didn't like the finish. Well, just throw a coat of clear coat, just throw some clear coat on there, and that'll fix that. You can kind of see that flake in there. All right, well, let's pull this tape off. We'll see how it looks against all the black. Cool. Now, there are a couple places I'm gonna need to touch up. That tape took some paint off, which didn't really think it was gonna do that, but all right. And then I'm gonna need to touch up places like that a little bit, but I'll just get a little paintbrush and do that. Not a big deal. You can see that line's not super straight, but it's because this is textured, so the paint kind of leaked through that tape a little bit, I think. But that's all right. Looks good. All right, let's see here. We'll touch up a couple of those spots. Well, this is pretty much the finished product on the paint job. You can see I touched up all these spots here where it ripped the paint off. And I went around and I just made all these lines a little bit more crisp. Now, some of them aren't perfect, I'll give you that. I mean, that's easier said than done to do that. But I think it looks pretty good. Especially if you just kind of step back and look at it. Man, that looks sweet. I like that it's just got the accent panels instead of like the whole box, you know? Yeah, I really like that. And the gloss. Man, I tell you what, that clear coat was probably the best choice. I know I said it earlier, but I'll say it again. That really made it pop. Kind of second guessing my choice to use that acrylic paint, because like I said, it just looked really, really, really flat, to the point that I just didn't really like the way it looked, but it was already on there, and I really liked the color. I just didn't like the finish, but now I love the finish. Man, that looks good. Well, we're getting there, guys. We're getting there, one step closer. We're almost done with this. Okay guys, well, there's the finished product. Subs are mounted. Port is mounted. Everything's all wired up. Man, that splatter paint with that clear coat looks nice. All right, well, that's how I built that box.
Now, if you guys want to see how I installed all this other stuff here, that amp, put that port in, how I put the subs in, I guess you're gonna have to stay tuned and watch the next video in this series. So until then, guys, play your music loud.